Hello, welcome to the channel. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Sal, and he is going to talk to us all about the spiritual side of life. So I'm excited to learn and to hear what you have to say. So let's crack on.
Well, thank you very much, Kris. I wasn't quite sure where we were going to go because there's so much we could speak about.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so I've been a seeker the whole of my life. I've been a seeker since I was 15 years old. Terrible childhood, lots of pain, lots of suffering, all the way through, and that pain spurred me to find alternative answers to life. And so in the process, I've gone through, I don't know, you name it, spiritual healing, Gestalt psychotherapy, acupuncturist, trainer, Taoist trainer. Anyway, I mean, there's a lot more, but I mean, it gets boring. I've spent my whole life in the alternative field. And when I was 60, I retired. After 40 years seeking to be a good healer, really, it was all about me, healing me. But after 60 years of this, I realized I was no good. Yeah, people said I was good, but I knew I wasn't. I helped people in many ways, but in many other ways I didn't.
Right. Okay.
And there was a number of crucial bits missing. And when I reached 60, I finally dealt with the most painful part of my life, which had been running throughout in the background. And this was how I felt about my mother, who had put me in an orphanage at the age of 3.
Right. And
it took me till I was 60 to reconcile my emotions and my grief, deep grief.
It's abandonment, isn't it?
It's total abandonment. But it was worse because then I was put into this orphanage run by nuns. And there was a beautiful nun there who took me and became a bit like my mother. So for the next 5 years, she became my mom. Right. And then I was snatched away from her and taken to a different orphanage run by priests. So, I mean, like, that totally did me in. So between the first and the second, it totally did me in. Anyway, so it took me till I was 60. And
where was this?
This was in Spain.
In Spain, yeah.
Spain. After the Civil War, there was a lot of hunger. There was a lot of stuff there. Anyway, so when I reached 60, I said, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to retire because I'm not good enough. And I then spent 2 years of soul searching in a way that I hadn't done before. And one day, looking in the mirror, I was so grief-stricken as I looked into my eyes. And I realized that I was a healer. I mean, what is a healer? I mean, there's no such thing as a healer, but as close to a healer as a human being can get. I can help other people to improve themselves. But I realized that's what I've always been.
Was it like a light worker?
You could call it that. There's a lot of funny words these days. You could call it that, but it's been my calling. The whole of my life has been my calling, and I turned my back on it because I wasn't good enough. And during this couple of years, I've been working and clearing the last dregs of emotional pain from my psyche. So I then retrained to be a kinesiologist. And
what? Sorry, what's one of those?
Kinesiologist, and when you do muscle testing on people, there's an inner intelligence within people, and you can access that through muscle testing. And so I began to do that, and I was doing it in America normally the way they do kinesiology is very small piece and meal. I went to this guy in America and he taught me everything. But what he taught me was what I already knew. I've been doing it for the last 40 years. What I didn't have was the muscle testing. So I began to do the muscle testing. And then I thought, this is strange, because when I do muscle testing, people are responding, not just what I verbalized, not just to my questions, but to what's in my head. So I began to play with that, and they were responding to my imagination, to my intent. And I then began to realize there was something else going on here. So I got some of my friends and I began to muscle test them, but I began to ask them questions. And they began to tell me something very interesting. They began to tell me that I had to write a book. Me, write a book? What do I know? I'm not that type of person. I'm a physical, hands-on person. I'm not an academic.
No, creative.
And so I began to write a book. I began to write little things, and as I was doing this, I began to ask questions. I began to do self-muscle testing, and I began to ask questions. And so a collaboration began between me and something within me. And
your higher self.
So people call it. So I wrote a book, and it was my story, how I moved through life, etc., my perceptions. To be honest, 3-4 years now later, it's a bit simplistic. But nevertheless, it was a good start. And then I began to write articles, and the collaboration between us, I got to call this something. I got to give it a name. So I called it Charlie. Just so I can't just. And anyway, so Charlie began to, in my meditations, I began to consult with him, and he began to tell me what to do to help myself. So using acupressure, working with emotions, moving into past lives. And then finally, he began to really work on my chakras. And so all the time, my connection with Charlie strengthened. It got stronger and stronger. Today, when I work with people, we may as well be one. And so that's pretty much what's happened to me over the last few years. And he told me a lot of things. And as I wrote the articles involved past lives. Sorry, not past lives, the history of mankind in the past.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So he began to tell me about as I asked the questions, so he began to divulge information. I have to ask the questions. And so I began to find out about the past. I began to find out about the future. I began to find out about the nature of creation. What is the nature of creation? Everybody tells us the nature of creation. There's a million stories, whether you go from traditional religious groups to all these channels. Everybody's got a different story. And he told me a story which is a lot simpler, far, far simpler. There's the physical dimension, 3-dimension, of cause and effect. The objects move, everything affects each other. There is cause, there is effect. And so we have time, because how objects move in relation to each other, go further, come nearer. We ourselves say, oh, that's time, because we can calculate time, and it's very much down to us. But we think about other dimensions, and we do all these wonderful theories, mathematical theories about dimensions. There isn't. There is only one dimension, and this is the dimension of soul. So what we've got is we've got God, which is undifferentiated, i.e., he is unformed. Not even Charlie can fully explain what God is. Just to put that into perspective.
Okay.
But then the soul dimension is the closest thing to God. And so if you were to split God up into two, you would have God undifferentiated and the soul dimension. And the soul dimension itself is fractured. So God is one, undifferentiated. And the soul dimension has been split from God, if you like. So God has created the soul dimension. God is still within the soul dimension because God is everything. There's nothing else. So he's created this separation. We now have the soul dimension. And the soul dimension itself is fractured. Everything apart from God is fractured. It's about how much fracturing there is. So the soul dimension is divided into 30 odd dimensions, and human beings contain a fragment of soul within us. And the fragment of soul within us belongs to the 9th dimension. So I've given names to all my little bits. So Eric is the soul fragment I belong to. Okay. So I've got Eric. And now Eric itself is a soul fragment of another soul above, which is in the 12th dimension. And Charlie is in the 12th dimension. So the reason why I'm able to do what I do is not because I connect with what people would call their higher self, which is Eric, which is my immediate soul fragment. It's the next level up, which is Charlie. And Charlie itself is he's also a fragment of another group of souls which belong to a planet. But it's not the Earth's planet. The Earth also has a soul who I've labeled Henry, because
I'm surprised you didn't say Gaia.
No, I listen. You can call him whatever you like. It, whatever, they're undifferentiated. They're non-gender. The soul dimension is beyond time, but they're not beyond space. However, every soul occupies the whole of the space of the soul dimension. It's a bit like a drop of water in the ocean. It doesn't matter where that drop is. It's the whole ocean.
Yeah.
Unless you separate it, the whole space of the ocean, that's the soul dimension. But within that, there are drops. And those drops, they've got a certain level of heat, if you like, vibrational intensity. And so depending on their vibrational quality, so they occupy different levels within the hierarchy of the soul dimension. So it's all one soul, but that one soul is subdivided into fragments. Just like you, me, we're all subdivided into fragments. Who are you, Kris? You say, well, I'm the consciousness, I inhabit this body. Yeah, but your body, you got organs, you got cells, you got free-floating cells through your blood, you got others which are, staying place.
Every cell of your body has a digestive system, as I understand it. So every cell in your body is a separate living entity within you. So it's the same kind of things you're saying. And I also like the anagram rather, analogy of God is a bit like a hologram. If you used to smash a hologram onto the floor, it would shard into 1,000 pieces, but each part will contain the whole picture. And so that's kind of like the God within you.
That is exactly how it is. How it is. So the soul dimension embodies the qualities of God. I mean, they are God. But it's a fractured, but it's outside of time, okay? But now the soul dimension has created the physical dimension. What we call the Earth, this three-dimensional universe, this has been created by the soul dimension, not by God as God. God as God, everything is God, even the third dimension is God, but God as God creates the soul dimension. And the soul dimension, in turn, has created this third dimension. And the way that it does this is that the lowest vibration level of the soul dimension, their will, is what uses it gets a vibration within in this third dimension. It begins at the very, very lowest quality of matter. I mean, I don't know what you call it. Less than a photon, quark, keep going down to the smallest subdivision of whatever constitutes an element in this third universe. That is simply a vibrational energy. Well, the soul dimension, low level, first level of soul dimension, they affect their will on that. And so they gradually come together. And out of that, complexity builds. And as that complexity builds, more and more will from the soul dimension applies itself into it. By the time it comes into you, you see, although you've got a soul fragment behind Kris, that is only the generalized explanation. Because the truth is, there are trillions of fragments of soul of the first level dimension, which are involved in every single molecule within your body. God is within every part of you, part of me, part of us. Yeah, we're not. There is nothing else. All there is God, which has been fractured, as you say, within the what did you call it? The hologram. The God. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
we are
nevertheless,
God experiencing itself from all different angles, and that's and that's kind of what
absolutely,
we are.
At one level. So there's this hierarchy of souls, and then as the souls congregate and they build up, then you've got a soul for a planet, a soul for a star, a soul for a galaxy, till you get to the soul for the universe. So they're just gradients and gradients of the soul dimension intimately involved in the physical dimension. Okay. So I hope I haven't given anyone a headache.
No, that's cool. I'm on your page. I understand what you're saying.
I will put a diagram out that shows all of this. So Charlie began to help me, and he helped me to heal. I was very sick. I was type 2 diabetic. I had damage in my guts, weak kidneys, weak liver, all manner of physical symptoms. And he helped me. I mean, I'm not out of the woods. I'm no longer a type 2 diabetic, but I still have weak kidneys. It takes a few years to fix. And he tells me what to eat. He tells me what nutrients I need to take, whether it's homeopathy, backflower remedies, tissue salts, vitamins, minerals. He tells me whether I need to take something or other or not to take it. And then I realized that I could do this with people. Not just
when you say he tells you, are you hearing it just like a voice in your head, or are you hearing it like a gut instinct, or how does that message portray to you?
It's a never-growing confluence between the two of us. To begin with, it was purely just I used my hand, so I don't know whether you can see that there, but it was just yes and no questions. So
right,
yes,
okay.
no, yes, no. And I got that to a fine art. So like how people used to do Morse code. But they could still, after they were good at it, they could literally read it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing between Charlie and I. I can do that. Okay. I can literally read it. But then there are times when the two of us are so enmeshed as one that I'm talking or I'm writing, and it's hard to know where he ends and I begin, or whether he begins and I end. And I see images, and I will hear things, but I never trust that totally.
Right. Okay.
I don't totally trust what goes into my head. So I will always double check with my hands. I will always double check with yes and no. So whatever comes through me, I always double check and triple check, to be honest, sometimes quadruple check, because the only way that Charlie can communicate with me is when my heart is open.
Yeah.
And when we're not in our hearts, we don't know we're not in our hearts. Like, you're either in there or you're not. If you're not in there, you don't really know you're there. You have to be there to know you're there. And so I've worked out a whole variety of questions to always make sure that my communications are accurate. And so I work with people now, 5,000. I work with people in California, you know what I mean, from Scotland. So what then happened was that I realized that, and I made a few mistakes in the process till I understood this, that Charlie can only communicate with me whilst I am in daylight hours, whilst the sun is on my side.
Oh, really?
Because the thing is, the soul dimension is an undifferentiated space, but it's another dimension. And the universe is infinite. We live in an infinite universe. You know, like people talk about, you know, like our galaxy is only, 13 billion years old. And before that, there was nothing. It's actually theoretical. That's just theoretical.
Oh, yeah, it's all theory. It's all theory.
Yeah, it's not truth. I mean, as far as Charlie is concerned, our galaxy is about 66 billion years ago, old, 66 years old. And that's just our galaxy. Anyway, so Charlie, to communicate with me, because he's in another planet, he's not from this sector.
He's not of this world.
He's not of this world, he's not of this sector either. And so his soul fragment is a planet in another part of the galaxy, this galaxy, but it's another quadrant. And so to connect with me from his dimension, he can only do it by the sun. So like from the soul dimension, he can pinpoint to the sun, our sun. And so from there, he can engage with me. So when he wasn't around, like nighttime, I would ask questions and I would do things to myself and I'd make myself worse. Because I would ask questions thinking that I was actually doing it, but it wasn't happening because I wasn't connected with Charlie.
So is it the energy from the sun then that he needs in order to... No,
it's just, the sun is just from the soul dimension. The sun is a pinpoint on a map, if you like, just to...
Right, okay.
Imagine there's a map, and so the sun is a pinpoint that he can see. So he can hone in on the sun.
Right, okay.
And from the sun...
So it's a focal point.
It's a focal point. So it took a while, but we worked it out, and now I know. So he's only available to me daylight hours. But then what happens if I'm connected with someone who's on the other side of the world and they're nighttime, or I'm nighttime and they're daytime? Why does it work? So what Charlie did was he connected me to Henry, who is the soul of this, or what you call Gaia.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to use the word Gaia, then I have an immediate connection with Gaia. I call him Henry.
Okay.
But I'll use Gaia for now because I suppose maybe a lot of people will relate to that. So I have a direct line with Gaia, but Gaia does not give me any information. The only thing that Gaia offers me is love. To connect with Gaia for me is to connect to love, literally an energy. It just like, gets me into my heart straight away. Okay. And so what Charlie does is he uses Gaia as a go-between. So if someone's on the other side of the world, Gaia acts as an intermediary for me to
Okay,
connect.
yeah, that makes sense.
So I tell you what, all of this is very theoretical, but if you're willing, I will give you just a little tiny demonstration, because this is not the place for it. But
Yeah.
I'll give you a little demonstration. So I'm going to connect with Charlie, and I'm going to ask what I've already asked him yesterday, by the way. So he said,
okay.
If
You prepared him. You prepared him.
If you were willing, that's, he was happy to do this. And so what I will ask Charlie is there one or two acupuncture points in your body right now that you would touch them and you would recognize, well, actually, yeah, that's tender. And I would then ask you to hold that for X amount of time. And so what I would ask of you is to sort of take note of how you feel right now, where you are in yourself, and whether you notice a difference. Because where are you at the moment, Kris? Where are you based?
I am in a small rural town of Thetford in Norfolk.
Norfolk. So I don't know where that is, but it's a good few hundred miles away from where I am.
About 30 miles away from Norwich and about the same distance from Cambridge. So East Anglia.
So it's a long way. Right, so it's a long way. So from here to London, it's a good few hundred miles. So, we're a good few hundred miles away from each other.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So let me just... All right, Kris, how can we help? So what I'm interested is there one or two acupuncture points that we could do now that would prove to you that, yes, actually they are tender, and that they would be useful to you. They would be beneficial to you in terms of helping you to be a little bit more balanced than you are at the moment. There are. All right, so shall we begin with that? CV, GB, fire, earth, metal, large intestine, lungs, large intestine between 1 and 5, 5 and 10, 6, 7 on the right. On the left, this is a tonification. This is a sedation. So this is large intestine 7 on the left, sedation. Okay, so what you do is, if you can see my hand there, from your thumb, go down roughly to the halfway mark, and then go up a little bit more with your middle finger, because this is going to be a sedation. Basically, this is this will help to relax your sympathetic nervous system, which with most people in the winter months becomes overrepped, especially because of the life we lead. So anyway, so what I want you to do is, don't do anything. Just leave your finger there. Put your finger on your left side. On your left side. That's your right. Yes.
My left arm.
Your left arm.
Right.
Middle, on the middle, about halfway, with your middle finger just slightly further along, and then keep your finger there for a second. I'm going to tell you where to go.
Okay.
Okay. Large intestine 7 on the left. Are you in the right place? Do you need to move towards the elbow, towards the hand? You need to move out. Do you need to move out? Do you need to move in? What? A quarter less, but an eighth, no less. Just move your finger fractionally inwards, just a fraction, just a fractionally inward. Okay, large intestine 7 on the left. Are you there? Are you in the center of that? Now, if you press that, that should feel a little bit tender.
It's hard. I don't know if it feels tender. Maybe the more that I'm doing it.
Stay there. We're gonna hold it there. We're gonna hold it there for 100 seconds. Let me just get.
It's ironically on the tattoo of my daughter's name.
Okay, hold on a minute. Okay, so just hold the finger there. Just relax. Hold the finger there. Relax the elbow. We can keep talking. It doesn't matter. So we're using all the fingers of the hands. They contain polarities, electrical polarity, positive and negative, if you like, for sake of argument. And they're different for each finger and for each hand. And when you put your finger on the right spot, that has an effect on you. You did take note of how you were feeling before we started, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so just keep it there. Funnily enough, this point comes up a lot with my clients in the winter months. And I think it's a lot to do with modern technology. We keep ourselves alert and super awake when we should be sleeping.
Yeah. And also the I would say the frequencies that these gadgets emit as well probably don't do us the world of good.
Probably not. It depends how close you have them to yourself, of course. 5G is definitely a killer, but
Absolutely.
up to 4G, you're not too bad. Okay, you can take your finger away.
Okay.
Any other points? CV, GB, fire, earth, metal, large intestine again. Is it number 12? This one comes up a lot. Is it number 12 on the right? On the left, this is a sedation as well. So we're talking large intestine 12 on the left, sedation. So the same finger, this time come up above the elbow and come up about a couple of inches above the elbow with your middle finger. All right. It's okay, I don't need to see. So large intestine 12 on the left. Are you in the right place? Do you need to move up? Do you need to move down? Do you need to move in? You need to move out, what, a quarter of an inch further out. Are you in the right place now? Do you need to move up? Do you need to move down, what? Just a fraction, just downwards towards the elbow by a fraction. You're in the right place. Are you in the center? Okay. You're in the center now. So let's begin. So the thing is, you see, you don't need to know where the acupuncture points are because I can just guide you to the exact spot of where they are.
It definitely feels more tender up here than it did lower down.
It's the same meridian, but a few points higher up.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do one more point when you finish with this one. Don't want to sort of spend all the time on this, you know, when we can talk about other. It gets a bit boring for other people to see.
Well, hopefully they're playing along. Not that it works like
that. You know, one of the things I realized, like I said, when I was doing it to myself, if I had my finger on the wrong place, it created bad effects on me. And this is the power of acupuncture. It's really much more powerful than people imagine. But you do have to go to the right points. If you go to the wrong points, they're not so good for you. Anyway.
Are you familiar with Mark Bieski?
No, who's he?
No, he's got a really successful YouTube channel, and he's a healer, and he does like the crystals. I had him on my podcast, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, it didn't record. So, well, it did, but it just recorded. It recorded the video, but not the voices. So I couldn't use it.
Okay, all right. Well, hold on a minute. One more. CV, GB, fire, earth, metal, large lungs. So we're going to go for the lungs. Is it number 11? No, between 1 and 5. Lung 1, 2, lung 3 on the right, on the left. Count more than 40. So this is a tonification. So this is going to be with your forefinger, your right forefinger is going to go on your, I think it's about there, just by the side of the bicep. I don't know whether you can see there.
Bicep. I've got them.
I've got my bicep.
Yeah, mine's not so good.
I go to the gym.
Oh, that'd be one.
Well, I think you're far away. That's not where the side of your bicep is. It
there?
Oh, maybe it is. Okay, no, come to the side. All right. I think that's what it. I think that's where the lung 3 is. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. No, just hold on. So it doesn't matter. Just go to the side somewhere. Right. Right, lung 3 on the left. Are you in the right place now? Do you need to move up? Do you need to move downwards by how much? A quarter more, half an inch more, about an inch more, about an inch, but go down about an inch and a quarter. Okay. Lung 3. Are you in the right place now? Do you need to move up? Do you need to move down? Do you need to move out? Do you need to move in? By how much? Less, about an inch. You need to move an inch inwards. Move an inch inwards. Okay. Lung 3. Are you in the right place? Do you need to move up? Do you need to move down? Do you need to go any further in? Or you need to move out a fraction. Just go out, go back about a fraction. You went in too much. Out about a fraction. Lung 3, you're in the right place now. Do you need to move up? Do you need to move down? Do you need to you need to move in a fraction, just a fraction. Feel it. You're with your forefinger, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, lung 3, you're there now. Are you in the center? What's that feel like?
I can feel the ridge,
You can feel the ridge.
I guess, of my poorly developed muscle.
Are you in the center of lung 3? You are. Okay, just keep it there. So the left side is to do with emotions. It's to do with the second chakra. The right side is to do with the mind, third chakra. And so points along any meridian on the left side, they're to do with your emotional body, your emotional center. The way that emotions can affect your sympathetic or parasympathetic. So this one is now affecting your parasympathetic, but it's coming from so in a way it's affecting a different gland within your body, because
Right, okay.
Emotions, they all have a link to all the hormonal glands of the body, not just the individual hormonal glands per se, but also the organs. The organs also contain the capacity to generate hormones. Okay, that's enough. Finger off. All right. So take a deep breath. And how do you feel?
Calm.
Calm.
I feel calm, yeah. Less
What more
sweaty
could
than
you
I was a
expect?
little while ago.
Less sweaty. So not so anxious.
No, I feel quite relaxed, yeah. No, it's
Good.
quite relaxed.
So that's a very, so basically what I've just done there is show you that via Charlie, I've connected with you across 300 miles, whatever it is. And I'm able to guide you to exact points in your body of what you need to balance you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I've shared this with you. I'm not sharing this with you because, hey, everybody come to me. No, listen, I'm 70 years old. I can only cope with a few people. That's not why I'm here.
It's to help, self-help. So you can help yourself.
It's more than that. It's because I am here with a message. So, Charlie, the message, I'm here to help people open up to their hearts. Now, that doesn't mean to say that when you do, you'll be able to do what I do. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen for the majority of people. But I demonstrate this, very simple, but I demonstrate them to say, look, there is actually something that's connecting with me, that is helping me. Because, what do I know? I'm just an ignorant guy like anybody else. I'm nothing special, apart from the fact that my heart is open. But Charlie does have the capacity to allow me to know what's best for other people, to help them. So when I work with people, often what I do is, I say often, but it's when the person is ready.
Mm-hmm.
I help them to go back in time to when they were younger, different periods in their lives. I tell them how old they are. I tell them when it is, and I tell them what emotions are involved. So I help them to go down the rabbit hole because it's out of their awareness. And I get them to focus on the emotion which they suppressed when they were younger, but which they are ready. They're actually ready to release. You know, like the planetary influence, everything's moved into a certain position, and that person is ready to let go of that particular emotion, except they can't access it because it's out of their awareness.
Mm.
So I help them to guide them to it. I help them to connect with that emotion. I help them to bring it into themselves, experience it fully, experience the pain or whatever it was at the time. See the relationship to the present, because emotions which are not experienced in the past, they control our present.
Mm.
The way, because, you know, ultimately we are just machines. You know, you and me, Kris, Sal, we're machines. We're machines. We're products of this third dimension. Everything in this third dimension is mechanical. Everything. The soul dimension influences the third dimension, but anything within the third dimension is mechanical. So within each of us, there's a soul fragment that can guide us through life. But to connect with that guidance, we need to open our hearts. But to open our hearts, we need to deal with the pain of our childhood and formatory years. So we're in a catch-22 situation. And so most of us are stuck, except the world is changing. This is why next year I'm starting small groups to begin with 6 people at a time, where I will take them as a group with Charlie, and I will help them to connect with these emotions that they're ready to experience. And as part of the group, they will find it easier to release so that they can open their hearts quicker than they would by themselves. Because, you know, if you just go into ordinary psychotherapy, you can be there for years.
Mm. My personal preference, if I was going to do anything like that, it would either be mushrooms or DMT.
And that's great. However, when you do that, you're opening Pandora's box.
Right, okay. What about ayahuasca ceremonies?
It's the same thing. I've done it all. Okay,
Right, okay.
I've been there, I've done it. It's not the way forward. It's not the answer. The only way forward is to have the experience of emotional intensity. Your body, your nervous system can cope. You're like an electrical circuit in a house. You've got wires and you've got circuit breakers. If you put a load which is greater than what your circuit can take, the breaker will switch you off. And that is what happens with human beings. We developed the circuit breakers. Our mind became the circuit breakers when we were young, because the emotional experience was too intense. The grief was too great. The envy was too great. Yeah, whatever negative emotion it was too great. The mind, to protect us from that intensity, shut us off. And the way that we shut off is, first of all, the emotions, the intensity is in our bellies. And so we hold our breath because like it's too intense. And as we hold our breath, we seize up down there. We start to breathe from our chest. Now we're no longer breathing from the lower abdomen.
That's right, shallow breathing.
We're shallow breathing. And gradually we move away from our body and we go into our heads. Now we're in our heads. Now our experience of the world is not real. Now everything we experience is through words. They act like a filter to the world around us. We don't experience reality anymore.
That's what they call word spelling, isn't it? Words are spells.
Is it? I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah. That's where the word spelling comes from.
Spelling, yeah. I can see that. But I only speak from experience. Okay, I don't speak from books. I don't speak from other people, apart from Charlie. So it's only my experience and Charlie's experience. So this is pure information, unsullied by hundreds of years of egos, because pretty much everything we know has been written before by other people, and this is egos writing things down to tell us how to move beyond ego. Okay. Now, when I say move beyond ego, I am not saying give up your ego. In fact, I say the opposite. I'm saying it's really, really important to hang on to our egos. Ego is important.
That's just survival, isn't it?
Ego is a survival thing. Ego is what kept us safe when we were young. Yeah, because the world, when we're young, certainly in the modern world, when we're young, they conspire to take our ego away from us, so that we become mindless servants.
Yes,
parrots.
absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay, and so the only thing that keeps the spark alive within us is ego.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a damaged ego. So don't get rid of that. It's kept you alive. It's kept you going. It's what allows you to seek. This is what's helping you to wake up, because there was always that spark within you of rebellion, of questioning. It may not have been a lot, but it was enough. And so here we are today. And as from next year, there's going to be a change in the dynamics. As you know, the Earth is constantly moving, all the planets, all the stars, we're all constantly moving around the galaxy. The galaxy itself moves around other galaxies. Everything is interlinked. But as from next year, there's a new energy coming through. And you can already see it. You can see it beginning to happen this year. Right now, we see it with farmers.
Yes.
Yeah, suddenly, move. Over the last few years, we've seen this division without going too far, division in our culture between the yes and the no's. Those who say yeah, 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 and those who say no, no. Okay. And people say we're waking up. Yeah, it's a sort of waking up. It's not real waking up. This is waking up to the fact that you exist in a shitty world.
Yeah.
You exist in a world which is hell bent on indoctrinating you and keeping you thumbs down. And so you're waking up to this realization, and that is wonderful. And this is really important. But this is not where it's at. This is just the beginning. The truth of waking up is when we realize that we're beings who have a mind, emotions, a physical body, and a heart, feelings. And we want to be in our feelings, we want to be in our heart, because that is how the soul fragment within us comes through us. This is the impulse that guides our lives. At the moment, we've been guided by, I'm hungry, I play a computer game. We've got a million addictions inside us. We are pulled by all the addictions. We want to be pulled by a deeper source. We want to be pulled by our hearts. We want our hearts to guide how we move through life. And that is the challenge. But as from next year, this will become easier.
Well, that's good to know.
And yeah,
I'm glad
and
to hear
so
that.
this is why, I've been waiting on the sidelines for 3 years now. And so Charlie has said, no, work with people, individuals, honing my skills, my connection, our confluence. But from next year, so next year we're going live. So I've got this year. I've got I've got this year to live. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah. It's not a problem, but when our hearts are open, emotions flow. I cannot switch off my emotions, and I don't want to switch my emotions either. But now and then it catches me because my highway is open. So anyway,
So you're very positive about the future then?
I'm very positive as to the fact that about 2/3 of humanity over the next 20 odd years will open their hearts significantly. At the moment, the majority, Charlie, when I work with people in terms of emotions, Charlie helped me to put together a chart, which someone else did the chart before, called levels of consciousness. And initially I used that, but that is not enough. It's actually not accurate enough. And I've got a much more accurate map. And I use that when I work with people to find out where they're at. What is their level? What is the level of heart ego connection, soul ego connection? And to put that into perspective, the highest level of connection between our egos and our hearts, our soul fragment, is 89%. It's not possible to be 100% because we need ego. Yeah. Ego is important. I mean, I was saying this earlier on. Ego is important. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Ego is important, but ego needs to be subservient to heart.
That's right.
So with most people, their level is only around the 20% mark. And at that level, the connection with their heart is very, like it's sporadic. Every now and then a message gets through. But most of the time, they're just lost in their ego. They're lost in their heads. They're lost in all the rules and regulations. And that needs to move to at least 45%. Because, the world is as the world is. Because the world sees as the world sees. Our perception of ourselves is reflected in the world. If we're lost, the world is lost. If we're disconnected from our hearts, well, look at the world around you today. Wars, famine, debt, slavery, it's all out there. Because that's how people are in themselves. People are slaves in themselves. They're internal slaves. They're slaves to their ego, within their egos. And all of that needs to change. But how to change
100%.
it? Well, all of that's going to get easier. It's going to get easier. And the more people that begin to rise by dealing with their pain, you see, when you do ayahuasca or any of these other things, you can be lucky, and a lot of people are lucky a lot of the time. But one day, you might encounter something from deep inside of you, which is really, really painful, for which you haven't built the breakers to experience that emotional intensity. And so what happens then is you have an experience from something truly painful from the past, and you've got no resources to support you when you are inundated with
when
that
it's thrust
pain.
back in your face, yeah.
And then what
So then it becomes another trauma, doesn't it? A trauma on top of a trauma.
I mean, I know people from the past who they had a bad trip with LSD. Yeah, suddenly the world, everything is daggers and blood and, oh! And I had an experience like that when I was a young lad. But I was lucky. I was very fortunate. I went into hell in an LSD trip. I was in hell. And the world was closing in on me, and everything was really, really bad. And I was going down for the count. And then suddenly the sky began to lighten up. So within my darkness, there was the sky, it was like dawn was starting. And then suddenly a biplane just began to fly past me. And it had a banner behind it. And in this banner in red letters, it said love.
And was that
And
just
as
a
I saw
figment
the
of your
words,
imagination, or was there actually a plane with a banner that said love?
it was, well, it was, no. It was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was in my tent.
Okay.
3 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't know if that's just like a synchronicity thing.
Well, no, 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was going, it was real dark nighttime. So anyway, so the plane goes back and I saw the word love. And as soon as I saw that word, everything cleared. The darkness disappeared, the devils disappeared. I was raised as a Catholic. Everything went out of the word. And I went out of the tent. There was a dog right in front of the tent, and hello. So he came with me. I had this fancy that he was protecting me in my in my vulnerability. Anyway, he came with me, and the moon was out, and I went to the top of this mount, and I relieved myself. Oh, that was such a relief. And as I was doing that, I saw that there was a rainbow in front of me. My we was a rainbow.
Oh, really?
I was seeing a rainbow, literally. I was visually in the night. I was seeing this rainbow coming out of me. And yeah, everything was good in the world. I was fine. And I went back to bed.
Awesome. God, I don't know how you'd go back to bed after that. I'd be wired, I think.
Well, and actually, I'd taken both. I'd taken LSD and I'd taken magic mushrooms. So I'd done a double whammy.
You was on a proper road trip. Blimey.
But anyway, yeah. So, and there's been other times when I've done magic mushrooms, and in the past, and as I was working my way through, I was working through my ego section, and there was all sort of like not so nice bits. And if I stayed there, it would have done my head in.
Mm.
So I was awake, I was aware, I could feel it, and all I could do was just move higher up and say, focus on my heart, just move to my heart. But not stay in this layer. Because, even now, even though I've cleared all the negativity from me, I've still got patterns. There's still patterns from my youth.
But that's just your human side, isn't it? You're never going to escape your human aspect.
We're not. So all of that's still there. And it's recognizing that and accepting that.
Mm.
But what happens if you cannot go past that layer and you're stuck there with all the negativity? So, hey, I don't want to put down a bit of magic mushrooms, all right? I quite enjoyed the trips in the past. They can be great. What I'm saying is that
you just have to be very careful.
But the true process, this is not where the answers lie.
Right.
They're dead ends. They actually are dead ends. The true answers lie when we sit down, we connect with our emotions, we connect with our pain, with our suffering, and we build up. It's a bit like going to the gym, right? You want to build muscles, you got to get through the pain, as Arnold would say, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. It's the same thing. You've got to go in there. You have to experience that pain, those tears, that grief, that sadness, that anger, that negativity. We need to experience it all, but not react. We need to experience it, and we live
without the emotional attachment.
We need to let it flow through our bodies, because emotions are bits of hormones, I don't know how you call it, chemicals. They're bits which are stuck within our body, which stop muscles from moving. We've literally held that emotional energy in stasis. And that needs to be released. So we need to experience, to connect with an emotion, which is out of awareness, we need to experience it in our body. It needs to be a real experience. If we don't do that, we re-traumatize ourselves. Yeah, we just do it in our heads, we just re-traumatize ourselves. So it needs to be felt, experienced. And every time we do that, we get stronger and stronger, so that we can then experience more and more intense emotions. Ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, it won't do that for us. You have to really, it's like a 2-3 times a week routine. You know, I cried every day for 20 years, my meditations. I was doing it by myself. I had no one to help me. I was finding my way, stumbling in the dark. But I was working at it, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And
so it's what some people would refer to as shadow work. You have to do the shadow work to bring out
they can call it that, yes. Yeah, they can call it that. Yeah, I mean, this myth, and it is a myth. Well, actually, is that a myth? Yeah, it is a myth. So this myth of the Kundalini rising, it is a description of a process, but it's not a description that you can change simply because you're now withholding your semen.
Right, okay.
Because if you withhold your semen, your liver will get rid of any excess testosterone. If your body can't use it, and
just
this thing of
absorbs
energy, you know, this issue of energy. What's this energy? What nonsense is this? Energy rising through you. We are energetic beings. We are electrical beings, and there's definitely a flow within us. And it has a frequency and an undulation of sorts. And what does happen with most people is either the first or the second, third chakras, they're blocked. They are blocked with most people. And the fourth one is often blocked, but as much because the other three can't quite get to it. Actually, is that true? Is that true? No. Okay, that's not true. No. No, so the heart is actually quite independent. The heart is quite independent. Those first three, they're all to do with ego. The heart has got nothing to do with ego. It's beyond ego. So we've got these three lower chakras to do with ego. And if you're blocked there, yeah, sure, your emotions stop you from connecting with your heart. But it's not because there's a flow that needs to flow through them to open up the heart. The heart is there, ready to be opened, but it's not getting through. So hold on a minute. So yeah, okay, so this is new for me. The heart is open all the time. If only we can find our way there. But we can't when we're lost in our head. When we're lost in our thoughts, we can't connect with that.
So meditation is the best way to.
Yes and no. Meditation. When I first began, I began meditation very early. 17 years old, I was already meditating. But for many years, my meditation was actually ego meditation. What I mean by this was, I will control, sound like a robot, I will control my thoughts, I will stop my thinking, I will be here in my body, I am here now in the present, focus, 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 will. That's not where it's at. being in the present is about being in my physical body, being in my emotions, and my mind is aware. My mind is aware of myself. Everything is linked up together.
Mm.
But up to that point, all of that is ego.
Yeah.
So I can be here, I can be present, I'm self-aware, but I'm still in my ego.
Mm.
What we need is to move beyond ego, so that it's not just me isolated within my shell, but me connected with the environment beyond, with the people beyond, with the animals beyond, with the trees beyond, with everything around me, so that I can expand and contract depending on circumstances to connect with the universe. And when I connect with my heart, then there's the other dimension as well that can connect with us. And so we want all the three layers, the ego, all the facets of the ego. We want all that to be present, but we want that to be open and subservient to the heart. So we want the information from the heart to come through, to connect with the world, to connect with, when we connect with our hearts, we're not lonely. We're only lonely when we're isolated in our egos. When we are lost in ourselves, it's us against the world. We're in a shell. We're blocked. When we are in our hearts, we're connected with the world.
I like the analogy of ego is edging God out.
Well,
where your ego.
You can't edge God out, because God is in everything and everywhere.
Oh yeah, okay.
But when we are lost in our egos, we don't listen. The ego, part of the third dimension, it's a vehicle. It's mechanical. It's a machine. It's a Tesla.
God, likely to blow up then.
Well, perhaps, but maybe we should stick to the old diesel engine.
Yeah, I think we should.
But the passenger is within the heart. The passenger is the one that says, go here or there. Otherwise, we just go round in circles. Otherwise, we're just a boat which has no direction.
Steering itself, yeah.
Yeah, you just keep going around in circles. And that's what we do. We go round in circles, and we're manipulated into going round in circles. The whole culture schemes to keep us constrained and keep going round in circles. So we don't question, so we don't feel, so we don't experience, so we're not true within ourselves. How do we move beyond that? Emotional intensity, experiencing our pain. How do we experience our pain? You got to sit down. You got to stop. You got to move away from all the distractions of the world for 5-10 minutes. Listen to the running of a brook. Listen to music. Listen to soap as if you must, but listen to something that is going to make you cry. Something's going to connect your emotions that you're going to identify with. And once you've identified and you start crying, you ask yourself this question. What's the emotion? What emotion am I experiencing right now? And where is it in my body? And when you do, you have to practice, you have to cultivate. And when you do this, as you cultivate this, you get better at it, the more intense you'll be able to experience those emotions. And then you can say to yourself, well, what does it remind me of in my childhood, from my past life? Because all these emotions, they've got a beginning somewhere in our past. So the more we work with it, the more like, oh, and we make the connection from the past to the present. We make the connection between the emotion and our bodies. And we allow that. We allow the tears, really revel in it. Get messy. It's not running out, tears. Just be really messy. Just let it flow.
Be authentic.
Just go with it.
Be authentic.
Yes. Yeah. Be true to yourself. Yeah.
Definitely.
And the other thing, really, really important, stop lying to yourself. You know, most people lie to themselves. They're not even aware. Or when they're in company, or, you know, like they pretend to be something they're not. Stop it.
Yeah.
You know, next time you catch yourself lying to someone, say, sorry, that was a lie, and then tell the truth.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I began doing that when I was in my early 20s, and I got to tell you, I was lying like a trooper all over the place. And it took a lot of willpower on my part to own up and say, no, that was a lie. I'm sorry. And tell the truth. And keep
fair
doing
play.
it till it becomes true.
Yeah. No, that's fair play. That's good. That is. No, absolutely. I'd like to have I'd like to have a after we finish this podcast. I would like to have a private word with you off camera.
Sure.
But yeah. So before we wrap up, we're about an hour and a half, I think. But what I would like your opinion on, what with like the World Economic Forum and the UN and all those things trying to destroy us with their Agenda 2030 and all this thing, where do you see humanity going? Have they failed already?
They're not going to give up without a fight.
No.
And although these groups have no political power from the point of view of nations, they have political power because they pull the strings of the puppets who control our nations.
That's right.
So if you want to change that, I'm going to tell you, it's very, very difficult at that level. I mean, I personally don't engage at that level because I think it's the wrong end of the stick. The right end of the stick to change the world is by working on yourself.
Yes. Be the change you want to be.
Yes, change the world. Be the good person, be the kind person, be the empathetic person, be the person who is true and honest, who can see past the bullshit. You know, being open to your heart doesn't mean to say you have to put up with other people's bullshit.
No.
But it does mean you have to be able to see them for the tools that they are. Look, the World Economic Forum, they are puppets. They got strings. They themselves are puppets. Someone else is pulling their strings. They themselves, as puppets, have got strings, and they're pulling the strings of puppets beneath them. Those puppets beneath them, they also have strings, and they're pulling other puppets beneath them. It's a whole
pyramid.
It's a whole pyramid. Yes.
Yeah.
And so you cannot. I'm not saying don't. Okay. People need to do what they're doing. People need to do what they're doing right now, to do with the councils, to go to the PMs, to share with other people. Look how things are. This is not right. So all of that is important. People need to do that. But unless people work on themselves, work on changing who they are, and begin to appreciate that what you see out there, these people, they're reflections. Because you yourself, you're full of puppets inside you. Your personality is fragmented. You are a whole variety of different people. You're not the same person who wakes up and has a cup of coffee from the same person who wakes up and can't find the coffee. Right? I mean, we're driven by so many addictions. There's so many things within us which split us. They split us inside. We need to become one. Well, maybe one is too much to ask for, but we need to have at least, we need to narrow who we are to just a few personalities with one personality that can be in control. We need to narrow that. And the way to narrow that, and perhaps we could talk about this another time, is to begin to look at what is addictive for us and what is poisoning our bodies, our minds, and our emotions. And unless we can begin to become less fractured in ourselves, How is the world going to become less fractured? Begins with us. That's not to say, go out there and yes, do everything you've been doing and need to do. It has to be done. But that is not the answer. That is the
That really
motivation
is
to the energy that comes from the individual.
And that's just encouraging other people also to say, look, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Do this whilst simultaneously working on yourself.
Now, Charlie can only foretell the future in general terms. He can foretell the future in terms of the planets fairly accurately, within the next 20, 30, 40 years. But in terms of individual relationships, we move so fast and there's so many possible permutations that it can only give you a sort of percentage, up to a certain percentage. So in terms, okay, so he's willing to talk about this. So bearing in mind that it's all just percentages, you cannot say for certain. There's too many variables in the world. They won't lose their power in the next year. They will lose it within the next 10 years. So within 5 years, they'll still be in power. About 6 years, what's the percentage of that? About 90% accuracy, that they've got about 6 years to go to the death before they actually have lost their ability to pull the strings.
Which will take us, ironically, to 2030.
So it would. Yeah, they're not going to make it for that.
That's reassuring.
The movement is beginning, okay? It's beginning. And it's going to be slow, but it will gather pace. Which is why, I'm not the only one, but I'm starting. So I'm starting with groups of 6 people. And I'll be doing, the first year I can only do 4 groups. And I'll be honing my skills on that so that I can then do larger groups. So to begin with, I'll do 4 groups of 6, each one for 6 months. So there'll be 2 groups concurrently per month. And then the second year, I'm hoping to double that up. And I'm hoping then that somehow gets a ball rolling so that I can begin to, and I don't know how I'll do this yet. Charlie's still to share this with me. It's out of my consciousness so far, how I'll be able to extend this so that more and more people, perhaps even by remote, can connect and work at this. Because we actually need to truly expand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to really expand. It needs to be a lot of us. We need to be, what did Charlie say? So within about 8 years from now, there needs to be at least 1 billion of us, 8 years from now, 1 billion of us who've reached at least 40% in themselves, which cleared enough of their rubbish so they can connect with the heart much more regularly, and they can be moved by their heart. They can listen to themselves so they can hear the truth and they can begin to help others much more effectively. So that's 8 years from now to reach 1 billion. I'm not saying it's not down to me. There'll be others as well involved in this process, and it'll be easier from next year. So as from next year, everything's going to, at the moment, I speak spiritual truths to people, they can't hear me. They don't understand what I'm saying. They just cannot hear. They try, they want to, but they can't hear it. They're too seduced by all the rubbish out there. So.
No, well, I think that's a really good place to end it on. Like I said, I'd like to have a word with you after I finish recording, so don't hang up straight away. But for now, everyone, thank you so much, Sol. It's been such a great conversation, and yeah, I'd love to have you on again at some point, and we can.
I would like to. I would like to. There's so much we can talk about.
Absolutely.
We need to speak about food. We need to speak about food. People do not understand what's going on with food. The last 100 odd years have seduced us in such a way that we're destroying ourselves. It's a conversation we need to have.
Well, because food is very important at the moment, especially with like the no farmers, no food. We'll see if we can arrange it for next week if you want.
Okay.
And we'll dedicate a podcast to the food.
I'm game.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, then that's awesome.
Just to finish, listen, guys, those of you who are listening, thank you for listening. Not many people listen to me, I'll be honest, but thank you for listening. And if anything of what I've shared resonates with you and you have questions, put them down. I will answer them. If you put questions down, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you very much. We'll all appreciate that. But for now, thank you very much again, Sal. It's been amazing, and I hope everyone watching it has enjoyed it too. So until we speak again, all the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Kris. Bye everybody.
Now let's